Black Winter, 2017 to 2018. Musconetcong Mountain had barely abandoned its cloak of rust and orange when harsh, icy northeast winds ushered in a winter of unusual brutality. Sullen, black clouds rolled down again and again from the northlands, and the wind howled sleet and ice. The sky grew a perpetual, sullen slate and gave everything a close, hemmed-in feel, as if a lid had been pressed over all the world. The interstate vanished under a shroud of snow and ice. It was not a gentle snow, not the hummocky, fluffy sort that filled with sleigh bells and roasting chestnuts and laughing children, but a gritty, ice-field abrasive that stung exposed cheeks and blasted them raw. You could cut your hands building snowmen. All summer long and into the fall, Marisa Van Hoyten had watched the dominoes topple with fascinated horror. The economy dried and curled with the leaves, and fell with them, too, in the first harsh knife winds. Investors dropped Orbital Management and Clonam Holdings, following revelations that OMC had deceived telepresent operators and researchers with a virtual reality simulation and leased the same volume several times over on Leo Station. They began dumping Pegasus when word leaked of CEO Dolores Pitchlin's collusion with Clonam in fraudulent stock transactions. Then, as if fearing contagion, they began selling Boeing and Matsushita and other partners in the Leo consortium. Bids on volume in Leo Station dropped, sucking prices down all across low Earth orbit. Goddard, Tsiolkovsky, and the other stations began cutting back. By October, Earthside toolmakers were hurting for directionally solidified metals and chip makers for gallium bismide. Supplies of promovium began to dry up, leading to an upsurge in neoencephalitis. The Dow fell below 12,000. By the time the first bite of winter set in, unemployment topped 10%, and men and women who might otherwise have been blowing smoke, farming jeans, or hacking cheese were now hustling lunch money. The dip, they called it, hoping by name magic to lessen its severity. Riots broke out in Cleveland, the Bronx, and elsewhere. In January, in the bitter cold and knee-deep snow. Crowds bundled in down jackets and moon boots set buildings afire, though perhaps only for the heat. The mag train line that wound through the valley below Musconetcong Mountain cut back to 2 trains a day, then ran sporadically, then stopped entirely. It was foolish to ponder individual blame. Adam Van Hoyten often chastised himself for causing the dip, but his revelation of the fraud on Leo was only one factor among many. The Social Security crisis, Roberta Carson's announcement on the web of the oncoming asteroid, the federal shutdown of the orbital trade, as if the answer to high blood pressure was to stop the heart. Even had Marisa known of her cousin's plans and foreseen their consequences and forestalled his actions, the trigger would only have been something else. In itself, the dip of 17 was no great thing, not in the same league as 1893, let alone 1929 or 1873. It was the timing more than the magnitude that mattered. For during all that long, cold, lonely winter, the asteroid called the Bean spiraled closer and closer to Earth. Sleet curled across the flank of First Watchung Mountain outside the broad windows of the chairman's office at Van Hoyten Industries. Marisa Van Hoyten waited patiently and studied the eddies and whorls while her cousin Chris dealt with yet another interruption. She did not envy the man on the screen who was, after all, only doing his job. Marisa drank her tea. There was a woman reflected in the window, an old woman with lines around her eyes, soberly dressed in dark winter worsted. She did not know who it was. "Of course I understand, Chris," the man on the P-phone said. "We all face unexpected shortfalls. That's what a line of credit is for, to even out those bumps. Though I guess what Dolores Pitchlin gave you was more like a pothole." Chris Van Hoyten never showed anger. He was never known to raise his voice or to pound the table. When his frustration with fools and villains grew overwhelming, it showed only in a slightly stiffer bearing and a tendency to esoteric sarcasm. Generally, he relied on an